Take a look around your kitchen. There's a good chance at least 3 foods sitting there right now could cost noticeably more later this summer. Not because they're rare, not because anyone is predicting shortages, but because the same pattern has appeared again and again. Prices begin moving. Demand quietly builds. And before most shoppers realize what's happening, everyday products become significantly more expensive or much harder to find. The people who pay attention to these patterns rarely wait for headlines. They buy before everyone else notices. What's interesting is that some of the foods experienced shoppers are focusing on right now aren't the obvious choices. One item on today's list helps protect other foods. Another is so overlooked that most people don't think about it until they suddenly need it. And one product near the very top has been quietly stocked by preparedness-minded households for years despite remaining largely ignored by mainstream shoppers. The question isn't whether grocery prices will change. They always do. The real question is whether you'll spot the trend before the crowd catches on. Today we're counting down 17 foods Americans are quietly buying before summer demand reaches its peak. And a few of the items near the top may completely change how you think about preparedness. Every summer, millions of shoppers make the same mistake. They assume they'll have plenty of time. Plenty of time before prices rise, plenty of time before demand increases, plenty of time before shelves start looking different. Then suddenly, a product they buy all the time costs more than expected or isn't where it's supposed to be. By then, the advantage is usually gone. That's why experienced shoppers watch for early signals, not headlines, not social media panic. The small changes that most people overlook: a higher price than last month, a product that's selling faster than usual, an item that quietly disappears and reappears. Those signals don't guarantee a shortage, but they often reveal where demand is heading next. And that's where today's countdown becomes especially interesting. Because several foods on this list aren't the products most viewers would expect. One has become a quiet favorite among preparedness households despite being largely forgotten by mainstream shoppers. Another can help extend the usefulness of other foods in your pantry. And one item near the top may be among the most underestimated grocery purchases in America when it comes to long-term value and preparedness. As we move through the countdown, see how many of these foods are already in your home. Because the products that become important first are rarely the ones attracting the most attention. They're usually the ones hiding in plain sight. Number 17, peanut butter. It doesn't usually make headlines. Yet, peanut butter has quietly earned a place in preparedness pantries across America. Most shoppers think of it as a simple sandwich ingredient. But its value goes much further. A single jar provides protein, calories, versatility, and a relatively long shelf life. During periods of higher food prices, families often lean more heavily on affordable staples that can stretch meal budgets. That's exactly where peanut butter shines. Think about your own household. How many quick meals, snacks, or lunches could be made from one jar? Preparedness-minded shoppers appreciate that flexibility. And when consumers begin searching for inexpensive sources of nutrition, demand often rises quickly. The financial benefit is obvious. Buying during sales can lock in savings long before prices move higher. But that's only part of the story. The next item has become a summertime favorite for millions of households, and seasonal demand can have a noticeable impact. Number 16, canned fruit. Walk through any grocery store during warmer months, and you'll notice something. People start thinking differently about meals. Lighter foods, cooler desserts, fresh flavors. Canned fruit fits perfectly into that pattern. What makes it interesting is that it offers convenience without the short shelf life of fresh produce. Families use it in breakfasts, desserts, smoothies, emergency food storage, and quick snacks. During periods when fresh fruit prices climb because of weather challenges or transportation costs, canned alternatives often receive increased attention from shoppers. Many households appreciate having a backup option already stored in the pantry. Have you noticed canned fruit prices changing in your area recently? Because what happened during previous supply disruptions surprised many shoppers. When consumers began looking for shelf-stable alternatives, pantry products moved faster than expected, and another highly versatile pantry staple is coming up next. Number 15, pasta. It's difficult to find a food that stretches a budget quite like pasta. Simple, affordable, filling, and capable of feeding an entire family with surprisingly little effort. That's one reason experienced budget-conscious shoppers continue to keep it stocked in their pantries year after year. For many households, pasta isn't just another grocery item, it's a dependable backup plan. The kind of food that quietly sits on the shelf until it's needed, then suddenly becomes the foundation of dinner. A single box can become spaghetti one night, a casserole the next, or a simple side dish paired with whatever ingredients happen to be available. When grocery budgets become tighter, that kind of flexibility becomes incredibly valuable. What many households don't realize is that foods like pasta often see increased demand during periods of economic pressure. When families begin looking for ways to reduce spending without sacrificing meal quantity, they naturally gravitate toward products that provide the most meals for the least money. We've seen this pattern before. Whenever consumers become more conscious of rising food costs, staple foods tend to attract renewed attention. People start building meals around ingredients that are familiar, reliable, and affordable. However, that's not the only reason pasta matters. Experienced preparedness-minded families appreciate something else entirely: storage stability. Properly stored pasta can remain usable for long periods, making it one of the easiest foods to purchase ahead of time without worrying about immediate spoilage. Unlike many fresh foods that require constant replacement, pasta can quietly remain available when it's needed most. There's another benefit that often gets overlooked. Pasta works exceptionally well with other preparedness staples. Rice, canned vegetables, canned meat, beans, soups, and sauces can all be combined with pasta to create dozens of different meals. That versatility helps reduce food fatigue, something many families discover is more important than they expected. Imagine a household facing several weeks of unusually high grocery prices. Instead of making multiple expensive trips to the store, they already have several boxes of pasta tucked away. Dinner becomes less stressful, the budget remains more predictable, and the family maintains more flexibility when deciding how to spend their money. But perhaps the biggest advantage is peace of mind. Knowing that a simple, affordable, and highly adaptable meal option is already sitting in the pantry can remove a surprising amount of uncertainty from household planning. And here's where things become especially interesting. The next food isn't typically viewed as a preparedness item at all, yet when prices begin climbing, many families suddenly realize just how much they depend on it every single day. Number 14, coffee. For millions of Americans, coffee isn't a luxury. It's part of the daily routine. That's exactly why price increases attract so much attention. Coffee markets have historically experienced fluctuations due to weather conditions, growing regions, transportation costs, and global demand. Most consumers don't think about those factors until they notice higher prices on store shelves. Then the impact feels immediate. Preparedness-minded shoppers often watch for discounts and stock up gradually because they know replacing a daily habit can be difficult. Imagine starting your morning and realizing your preferred coffee has doubled in price or become harder to find. That's not an emergency, but it is an inconvenience many households would rather avoid. And speaking of everyday essentials, the next item has played a major role in previous buying surges. Number 13 may be one of the most recognizable foods on this entire list. Number 13, rice. Few foods have earned the reputation rice has. It's inexpensive, it's adaptable, and it works with an almost endless variety of meals. That's precisely why it tends to attract attention whenever families become more conscious of food budgets. What's fascinating about rice is how quickly demand can increase when consumers start looking for affordable meal extenders. A bag that might normally sit in a pantry for weeks suddenly becomes part of meal planning every day. History has shown that staple foods often experience demand spikes before shoppers cut back on other purchases. Rice frequently falls into that category. Many preparedness-focused households view it as a foundation food. Combined with beans, vegetables, soups, or proteins, it can dramatically extend meal options while keeping costs manageable. The savings potential is significant. Buying larger quantities during sales often costs substantially less than making repeated purchases after prices have already risen. And while rice is a pantry staple, the next item serves a very different purpose. Yet during periods of uncertainty, families consistently reach for it. Number 12, canned soup. There is something reassuring about having canned soup in the pantry. Maybe it's the convenience. Maybe it's the familiarity. Or maybe it's knowing dinner can be ready in minutes. Whatever the reason, soup has remained one of America's most dependable, shelf-stable foods. During previous disruptions, shoppers often looked for foods requiring minimal preparation. Soup checked every box. Easy storage, long shelf life, simple preparation. Families also appreciate its flexibility. One can serve as a meal. Several cans can support a household for days. For retirees and fixed-income households, that kind of convenience often carries real value. Think about your own pantry. How many meals could you create if shopping became difficult for a week or two? Most viewers probably already have this product at home, but the next item is one many people overlook until they suddenly need it. Number 11, cooking oil. It rarely gets much attention, yet countless meals depend on it. Cooking oil is one of those products shoppers often take for granted until prices jump unexpectedly, and when that happens, the impact reaches far beyond one item. Because cooking oil affects the preparation of dozens of foods people use every week. Previous market disruptions demonstrated how vulnerable certain agricultural products can be to weather conditions, transportation challenges, and production issues. When supplies tighten, shoppers notice quickly. Prepared households often keep extra cooking oil not because it's exciting, but because replacing it becomes inconvenient when prices climb. The practical value is enormous. Without it, many common recipes become far more difficult to prepare, and that's why this humble kitchen staple earns a spot near the middle of today's countdown. But now we're entering a category that tends to trigger much stronger consumer demand. And number 10 has repeatedly attracted attention whenever food budgets become a major concern. Number 10, dried beans. If there is one food associated with stretching a grocery budget, it's beans. For generations, families have relied on them during periods when food costs were rising and household budgets felt tighter than usual. Long before preparedness became a popular topic, dried beans were already a quiet staple in kitchens across America because they offered something every household values: dependable nutrition at a reasonable cost. They're affordable, they're versatile, and when stored properly, they can remain usable for an exceptionally long time. What makes dried beans particularly interesting is how easily they work alongside other pantry staples: rice and beans, soup and beans, chili and beans, casseroles and beans. A single bag can become the foundation for multiple meals, helping families stretch ingredients further without sacrificing satisfaction at the dinner table. However, that's not the only reason this pantry staple matters. Historically, when consumers become more conscious of grocery spending, foods that provide strong value for the dollar often see increased demand. Beans consistently fit that description. They're filling, widely available, and capable of feeding several people from a relatively small purchase. Experienced preparedness-minded households appreciate another advantage as well. Dried beans store efficiently. A few bags can fit neatly into a pantry, yet represent dozens of future meals. That's one reason many long-term planners quietly keep them on hand year-round, rather than waiting until prices begin moving higher. There's another benefit that often gets overlooked. Imagine a family reviewing their grocery budget after several weeks of rising food prices. Restaurant visits become less frequent, meal planning becomes more important. Suddenly, simple ingredients that can support multiple dinners become far more valuable. In that situation, dried beans often move from an occasional purchase to a regular part of the shopping list. A relatively small investment can provide a surprisingly large number of meals, which is a difficult combination to ignore. And while beans offer excellent value, the next food on our list serves a very different purpose. In fact, many households don't stock it because they plan to eat it at all. They stock it because it helps preserve other foods. Number 9, sugar at first glance. Sugar might seem like an unusual addition to a preparedness list, but there's more to the story. Beyond baking and beverages, sugar plays a role in food preservation, homemade jams, canning projects, and long-term pantry planning. Summer often brings increased interest in home food preservation as fruits become available, and families look for ways to reduce waste. That seasonal demand can create additional pressure. Many experienced shoppers understand that sugar isn't simply an ingredient. It's a household utility, a product that supports numerous other foods. And because it's relatively inexpensive compared to many grocery items, stocking up during favorable pricing often makes financial sense. Here's another question for you. Do you buy sugar only when you need it, or do you keep extra on hand? Your answer probably says a lot about your preparedness style. And the next item may surprise many viewers because it's something people often assume will always be available. Number 8 flour has quietly become one of the most versatile preparedness foods available. Bread, pancakes, biscuits, muffins, homemade pizza, the list seems endless during previous periods of increased home cooking. Flour demand rose dramatically as families rediscovered just how much they could create from a few simple ingredients. That experience revealed something important. Foods that support other foods often become more valuable during economic pressure. Flour isn't merely an ingredient. It's an opportunity to reduce costs, an opportunity to increase self-sufficiency, and an opportunity to create meals using ingredients already available at home. Many households overlook this until grocery bills begin climbing. Then, suddenly, homemade alternatives start looking much more attractive. And speaking of household staples, the next item is something nearly every family uses weekly. Number 7, pasta sauce. Pasta gets plenty of attention. But without sauce, many meals feel incomplete. That's why pasta sauce deserves its own place on this list. It combines convenience with versatility. One jar can become dinner tonight and leftovers tomorrow. Many shoppers focus exclusively on major ingredients while forgetting the products that make those ingredients useful. Prepared households tend to think differently. They understand that supporting items matter too. Historically, pantry products with broad household use often experience increased demand when consumers begin cooking at home more frequently. Pasta sauce fits that pattern perfectly. And because it's shelf-stable, many families prefer purchasing it before they actually need it. The next item, however, has experienced some of the most dramatic consumer buying behavior in recent memory. Number 6, frozen vegetables. Fresh produce is wonderful, but frozen vegetables offer something equally important: consistency. They're available year-round. They reduce waste. And they provide households with flexibility when fresh produce becomes expensive or less accessible. During previous disruptions, many consumers turned toward frozen foods because they offered a practical backup. A bag stored in the freezer could remain available weeks after fresh alternatives were gone. Families trying to control grocery spending often appreciate that reliability. No rushing to use products before they spoil, no unexpected waste, just food available when needed. Have you noticed more people buying frozen foods lately? Many retailers certainly have. And the next item may be one of the most underestimated pantry staples in America. Number 5, oats. Now we're entering the top 5, and this is where the countdown becomes especially interesting. Oats don't receive much attention compared to flashy grocery items, yet they offer remarkable value. Breakfast, baking, homemade snacks, long-term storage. Few foods provide as many possibilities for such a modest cost. For households focused on preparedness, oats check nearly every box. Affordable, versatile, easy to store, easy to use, and because they serve so many purposes, many shoppers quietly add extra containers whenever prices are favorable. What makes oats particularly attractive is their ability to support both everyday living and emergency planning. That combination is difficult to beat, but the next food has become a cornerstone of preparedness households across the country, and for good reason. Number 4, canned vegetables. When people think about food storage, canned vegetables are often among the first products that come to mind. There's a reason for that. They combine nutrition, convenience, and shelf life in a way few products can match. During previous buying surges, shoppers frequently prioritized foods that required little preparation while remaining useful across many meal types. Canned vegetables fit perfectly. They can supplement soups, complete casseroles, support side dishes, or stand alone when necessary. Many experienced shoppers view them as insurance for the pantry, not because they expect problems, because they appreciate options, and when options remain available, stress tends to stay lower. The next item has repeatedly attracted intense consumer attention whenever supply concerns emerge. Most viewers can probably guess what it is, but its ranking may still surprise you. Number 3, canned meat protein often becomes one of the most closely watched categories whenever food prices rise. That's where canned meat enters the conversation. Tuna, chicken, salmon, Spam, and other shelf-stable protein options. These products offer convenience that few alternatives can match. Preparedness-minded families appreciate having protein available without relying entirely on refrigeration. Historically, protein sources have attracted strong demand whenever consumers become concerned about grocery costs. That's because replacing protein isn't always simple. The household value is substantial. Quick meals, emergency meals, travel meals, backup meals, all from products stored conveniently in a pantry. And now we're approaching the final 2 items. One of them became nearly impossible to ignore during previous buying surges. Number 2, dried milk. Many viewers may not have expected this one, yet experienced preparedness households often keep dried milk available. Why? Because milk supports so many aspects of daily life. Cooking, baking, emergency planning, household flexibility. Fresh milk is perishable. Dried milk provides an alternative that remains available long after fresh options are gone. During periods of uncertainty, products offering shelf stability and versatility often attract increased interest. Dried milk fits both categories. For families with children or grandchildren, the value can be even greater. Having options available creates peace of mind, and peace of mind is exactly what preparedness is supposed to provide. But one food consistently appears near the top of preparedness lists across America, and it earns the number 1 spot today. Number 1, canned beans. If there is a single food that combines affordability, nutrition, convenience, shelf life, and versatility, canned beans make a compelling case. Unlike dried beans, they require virtually no preparation. Open the can. Heat if desired. Serve. That's simplicity many households appreciate. What elevates canned beans to the top of today's countdown is their ability to function in so many roles. Side dish, main dish, soup ingredient, emergency food, budget extender, preparedness staple. Throughout history, practical foods tend to outperform trendy foods during periods of economic pressure. Families look for reliability, consistency, and value. Canned beans deliver all 3. That's why preparedness-minded shoppers continue placing them in carts year after year, not because they're expecting the worst, because they're planning responsibly. Looking back at today's countdown, a clear pattern emerges. The foods many Americans quietly buy before prices rise aren't necessarily exotic or expensive. They're practical, useful, flexible, the kinds of foods households already use every week. Rice, beans, soup, coffee, pasta, oats, canned vegetables, products that help families stretch budgets while maintaining options. Preparedness isn't about panic buying. It's not about filling a basement overnight. It's about recognizing trends, understanding household needs, and making thoughtful decisions before circumstances force those decisions upon you. The most prepared households are often the calmest households. They aren't worried because they've already taken reasonable steps to reduce uncertainty. So here's our final question. Which item from today's list do you believe every household should keep stocked? And is there another food you think deserves a place in the countdown? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this video helpful, consider subscribing for more practical preparedness insights, grocery saving strategies, and common sense approaches to household resilience. Until next time, stay informed, stay prepared, and remember, preparation isn't about fear. It's about confidence.